we're back with the Teeing Off Golf Podcast hosted by the Chicago Tribune. This is John Borneman here with Matt Harness. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, the good, nice weather. Today I was in San Francisco for 4 days last weekend. Their climate out there is pretty incredible. I thought about just staying. But, I'm good. Excited to get this going. You were in the Quad Cities.
That's right. We have a special guest in the Freedom Center bunker today where we're recording the podcast, episode 13 all-time, episode 8 this season. We have, it's not Brian Harman, but it's Brian Harman bobblehead doll that we got at John Deere Classic Media Day.
Yeah, no, it's I appreciate you grabbing that for me. That's the only thing I wanted from that day. But
his hair is, pretty illustrious there.
And he has the Scotty Cameron putter. I'm not sure.
We'll have to get a picture up there on Twitter so we can see celebrating Brian Harman. I gotta say, it doesn't really look like him. Except for and there's some weird dots on his chin, so I'm not sure what that is. But it doesn't really look
Hopefully
like him.
He's okay.
But yeah, so today, I was out at John Deere Media Classic,
which is in
John Deere Classic Media Day in Silvis, Illinois, in the Quad Cities. On Monday, we're also going to talk today about, we'll look ahead a little bit to the U.S. Open, which is coming up here in a few weeks. And then NCAA tournament golf. The championship just wrapped up with LSU winning its first title since
it's been a while,
like 1955, I believe it was. Yeah, first.
I think they said it was the longest stretch between national titles. When they showed I watched almost all of it while I was at home working, but they said LSU had, when they played Georgia had 2 titles, which have been somewhat recent within the last 20 years. And then LSU had 4. I'm trying to think like when LSU won, and then they pulled the next screen up. It was like 1950. Right. I had no idea they played an NCAA tournament that long ago.
Well, they had something like 5 titles all time, but none since then.
None with, modern clubs.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. First, though, John Deere Classic, the next PGA Tour stop that's sort of in the Chicago orbit. It's about 3 hours from the city, I think.
That's right. It's a pretty easy drive. Once you get out of the city.
It's an easy drive. Not exactly an exciting drive, but it's an easy one. Yeah.
Just have to watch out for tornadoes down 88. You take 88 all the way in?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those events where, and we've talked about this before, the players that go there do like it. It's kind of an out-of-the-way, event, not in the big city. They can bring their families. And it's also a place where a lot of younger players like Brian Harman kind of get a start and maybe get a chance to win a tournament. Jordan Spieth, of course, won there when he was 19 years old. Brian Harman, is into his 20s, but, hadn't made a name for himself. He wins this tournament. Zach Johnson won it. A few times Steve Stricker's won it. So there's been some names. So, Jordan Spieth's probably going to be the star. Is Brian Harman going to be the next, big star? Who knows? I mean, probably not. I mean, it's always a long odds to be something like that. But, as we will listen, Brian Harman says this place, is special to him. Any place would be special if you win.
Right. It was his first tour victory. And, it seems like they sort of understand over there at John Deere, their place on the calendar. They do the best they can with what is not the most desirable date to make it, as you said, good for families. And then they, for the guys, any guys who are down there heading on to the British Open, which is the next week, which is why it's not the greatest spot in the calendar. They do their best to get a, they have a charter flight, a jet to take the people straight from Silvis to the British Open, which is a huge time saver for them. And if anybody is, sort of going back and forth, I think it sort of influences their decision whether to play at John Deere or not. Brian Harman actually had a funny quip. I don't think it'll be on any of the clips that we play here today, but during Media Day he said he was still riding high when he got on that jet and took the last spot, actually, in the British Open. And he said he might have had a few too many beers on that plane over, which you could certainly, you don't really have to blame him for after winning his first PGA Tour event.
I guess as long as he's not, driving a tractor after a few beers. But yeah, that was a cool thing. 'Cause I wish I knew this, and we probably should know this. I think that win maybe got him into the British Open.
It is. I have my press release right here. That's why I said that win gave him the last spot, the last qualifying spot for the British Open at Royal Lintham in St. Anne's, and he finished tied 26th, which is not bad. To get on a plane after winning your first event, fly over and finish in the top 30 is pretty good showing.
And so that's sort of another wrinkle to this tournament. So if you're not qualified for the British Open and have always wanted to visit St. Andrews,
it's your last shot.
It's your last shot. I mean, why not? I mean, I know that, Masters was always, famous for if you win any tournament on the PGA Tour, that automatically got you into the Masters. I mean, a lot of these guys, they win a tournament, the first thing they say is like, I can't wait to play the Masters. Then they took that away. It was a very unpopular decision. Now they brought it back. And so, John Deere could be sort of like that. It's like, hey, you win the John Deere, you can get in the British Open.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think let's we don't have a live interview with Brian Harman. But we do. We were at Media Day, so we're gonna play a couple clips here. We'll sort of talk about what Brian has to say, and we'll maybe pretend to talk to the Brian Harman bobblehead.
Well, I'll move the bobblehead's lips and see if he approves of what we're talking about.
Here's Brian on Media Day about winning the John Deere Classic last year.
I can't really describe the feeling that I had last year to come back and, like you said, get the job done. It was an experience I'll never forget, and John Deere will always have a special place for me, and I can't ever imagine not wanting to come back to this golf tournament. It's one of my favorites, and I really enjoy the area. Obviously, I've been a little bit involved before with Mr. Ontiveros, and I just love it around here. Y'all got great beef. Great beef around here. It was such a blur last year because obviously I was just on cloud nine, finishing that golf tournament off the way I did. That I've got little pieces of it, and I can remember coming up here and the big party that was going on, and just rushing, trying to get everything situated to get on the plane. But it was just a great end to a great week for me. It was really, really special.
All right, so there you have it. Silvis, Illinois has great beef.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I thought the first thing that came to my mind would be corn.
Right.
But beef in country is just a little west there, Nebraska.
Should have probably asked the follow-up as to, how the beef is prepared. And is he talking about, an Italian beef sandwich? Or is he talking about getting a steak?
Possibly brisket.
Perhaps brisket? Yeah, who knows? I mean, he's a Georgia guy, right?
He is.
He
went to Georgia.
Right. He did, yeah. It's been, 8 minutes of podcasting. You haven't even mentioned that yet. But, yeah, he certainly seems to enjoy the John Deere, and we should probably take a few minutes just talk about Brian Harman. I didn't know anything really much about him at all before going to this media day. He's not a big guy. He's 5'7", 150 pounds. Somehow hits it far enough to keep up with these other tour players. And he's a couple inches shorter than I am, and lighter as well. He's probably funnier than I expected him to be. I don't know what I really expected, but he was funny, personable in this interview. He had some good jokes, had people laughing. My favorite part personally was when he talked about the fact that all these good players coming from Georgia, they could have just come from anywhere. It didn't matter. They didn't pick Georgia because they loved it or they thought it was a great school or had a great golf reputation. He said it was really Kevin Kisner, who you didn't even know was a Georgia player.
And he's from South Carolina.
Right, who went there first. And then I think it was Chris Kirk followed him. And the momentum just started going where the guys were all like, well, shoot, I'll go play with my friends at Georgia. So Georgia really just sort of lucked into any of this golf success that they've been having.
There's got to be something to say about developing.
And this is according to Brian Harman himself. So this is not me talking.
That's fair. I mean, however it worked out. The Georgia Bulldogs are, as I joke often it's the UGA Tour.
Yeah, that's a great joke.
Yeah, I mean Chris Kirk just won.
Right.
2 weeks ago.
Well, did you? Well, I don't start ripping on Georgia yet. As when we get to
But Brian Harman, let's just go back. I mean, you said you didn't know much about him. I don't think many people did, but he was. This probably didn't surprise a lot of him winning the John Deere. Didn't surprise a lot of people around him. He has been one of the best players at every level of his career. He won. He was ranked the number one amateur in the country at one point. He won a U.S. Junior Amateur. Played on 2 Walker Cup teams, which is the Ryder Cup equivalent for amateurs. So I mean, this guy had the pedigree. It's not as if he just came out of thin air and started playing well on the PGA Tour. I mean, it probably takes some time to adjust to that life of that grind of the traveling and seeing golf courses for the first time and preparing. So a lot of times you'll see guys win. Not everybody is Jordan Spieth and shows up and wins a tournament when he's 19 years old. It takes a little bit of time to ease your way into this tour. So,
and I think Brian, he's 28 now. I think.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Still young by golf standards. I mean, he's not even into what you would think a pro golfer's prime is. But he actually talked about that at Media Day a little bit. What you're talking about, which is how that first win on tour sort of validates you and makes you feel like you belong. And let's go to that clip here right now.
It's one of those things where you finally feel like you belong. Obviously the tee times are better. You start getting into the tournament a little bit earlier. If that makes any sense, you feel like that you're more a part of the tournament sometimes. Your first year on tour, you've got these tee times where you're like last off, and then the next year after you keep your card, you're first off, and so you're not really in with the crowd and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely an adjustment, but it's a very good adjustment. It's very positive. So it was a big deal for me.
Well, what I've found interesting, I knew that there are certain tiers of players. I didn't necessarily know that if you're a rookie, you get sort of the terrible tee time, because teeing off that first day late is really not great. I mean, that course has been beat up.
Yeah, it's always better
long.
to tee off early when the courses don't have spike marks on the greens and no one's been through there.
And also mentioning about knowing that you're going to be in a tournament maybe a couple of weeks before you have to play it, so you can kind of get ready to go there, other than Monday qualifying or finishing the top 10 the previous week. Then that gets you into the next week.
Right.
So sort of being able to build a schedule around your golf.
Yeah. And I think I was reading in this one of the press releases they gave us is you get that win, and you can play in any PGA Tour event, almost any PGA Tour event for 2 years. You get that one win, and you could make your own schedule on the outside of a couple of qualifying events. Where you can be every week. So it's obviously a big deal. I can share one story in terms of arriving, feeling like you arrive and belong places. On Monday morning before John Deere Media Day, I was, we stayed at Jumer's Casino, and I was going down to get breakfast at the buffet, and the lady at the front counter at the cashier asked me if my name was Brian, and I said, no, my name's not Brian. And I thought to myself, what a strange question. Do you ask everyone this? And so I go through, and I'm standing in line waiting for an omelet or something, and I turn around behind me, and all of a sudden, Brian Harman's standing behind me waiting for an omelet as well, and I realized they're waiting for Brian. They had a PGA Tour table to welcome him, and the woman must have thought I could have been Brian Harman, which he should feel insulted about, I think.
So are you saying that was the moment you arrived?
I think, well, that was the moment just before he arrived at breakfast, and he's still trying to, despite, he's won his first event and should be a springboard for his career, but still trying to maybe become a little more recognizable.
Maybe send the Jumers a Brian Harman bobblehead in case he wins next year.
Right, you put him on
stick him on the lobby.
And then, although if I saw that bobblehead and then saw him, I'm not sure I'd make the connection. Oh, his hair's a little bit shorter now than the bobblehead makes it look.
And we should say, too, just to let my brother know, Brian Harman is a lefty. Best I can remember, my brother is a lefty. My brother is terrible at golf. And I don't know why I just brought that up. But I was with my brother this weekend, and I was telling him that I'm going to be talking about Brian Harman. And he said, who? And I said, he went to Georgia, and he won a PGA Tour event. And still had a blank stare on his face. I said, he's a lefty. And my brother was like, could you please stop talking about this?
You have a left-handed golf brother too, huh? There must be something about that. My brother plays lefty as well and loves every left-handed golfer. It used to be that you could only cheer for Phil Mickelson, basically, if you wanted to be a fan
Weir.
of a left-handed golfer. But yeah, then you had Weir, and now you got Bubba, and you've got Brian Harman. Right. So no shortage of lefty golfers. Now, and the one of the other things Harman talked about at media days, John Deere has sort of a rep of being, I don't know, is it you say that they think the TPC Deere Run is an easy course? I mean, he won at 20 under par last year, which is a pretty low score. I mean, so certainly you think of it as a course that people score well on, but Harman took issue with that, and here's his comments about thinking that TPC or Deere Run is an easy track.
Wow, that last hole sure played pretty hard last year. I mean, I had a 6-iron in over water trying to hang on to a 2-shot lead. So I don't necessarily equate low golf scores to somehow or another the golf course being easy. It's just that the guys are good. I mean, the guys are hitting it 300 and some odd yards and hitting it really straight, making a lot of putts. Like I don't get where that's a bad thing. That's fun to watch. That's one of the great things about Augusta's. The back nine roars. They're not roaring because the guy's making a 20-foot for bogey. They're making eagles and birdies, and that's what's so exciting about this place. And I personally, I wish golf would be a little bit more like that sometimes. You look at the caliber of player that won this golf tournament over the years, and I mean it's a good test of golf, and it takes really good golf to win here. I mean, there's no, the weather's always good, so you've always got low scores, so the guys have got to play well, and so I'm not surprised that you've had some really great champions here.
Well, so talking about liking to watch birdies and eagles, it's perfect because in a couple minutes we're going to talk about the U.S. Open, which swings so far in the other direction. You are cheering for guys who make 20-footers for bogey at the Open. But, what do you think about what do you have to say there?
I think calling a golf course easy is probably the wrong adjective to use because that's okay. I maybe you call it the John Deere or the TPC Deere Run an entertaining golf course. Like he said, people – it's nice to have a mix where players can go out and make birdies. But, I mean, calling it easy. I mean, if you play poorly, you can't hit it all over. We played there. You can't hit it everywhere and make birdies or pars. So that to me is like that's not easy. You still have to hit it straight and make putts. I think that I don't think whoever called it easy probably used the wrong word. I think maybe it's a different kind of course that if you play well, as he said, I mean, if you hit 350-yard drives and put pitching wedge in your hand, you're probably going to make some putts. So that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with having a course that's entertaining every once in a while.
We played out there on Monday and it was a shamble format where everybody hits their tee shots and then plays their own ball into the green. And I think as a group, we had some good players and ended up shooting 66, which is pretty good. But it's hard to then, and we're playing from 6,300 yards or something ridiculously short like that. It's hard to imagine how these guys come out and shoot in the low 60s by themselves, just one guy not getting multiple shots at it. The greens are, really fast, and there is definitely a lot of trouble tree-wise that you can get on. You have to place your shot, you have to place your tee shots in the right spots. From what I remember, I didn't play this year, I played last year. There's a bit of water out there as well. Well, and Harman referred to the 18th hole where you have to essentially kind of lay up the dogleg right. You have to sort of lay up your tee shot because you got to be careful of driving it through the fairway and into a bunker. And the trees are tall enough and far away enough that you really can't cut the dogleg too much or you're bringing a lot of trouble into play. So you lay up in front of this bunker, although a lot of guys, I think Stricker won it from driving it in that bunker before. And your second shot is over a pond from, 190, 180, 190 yards because you've laid up, over a pond to a pin that's inevitably tucked around behind that pond on the left side of the green. So
that's not easy.
That's not an easy hole. And you're coming down there, he came down there with a 2-stroke lead, but you're thinking, putting one in the water, and that's it. And if you're miss right, everything runs down toward the water. So it's a course where you shoot well if you are putting yourself in good position. If you get behind, if you get off track, off the tee or something, you can get in trouble pretty quickly. It didn't give me as much trouble as the course that we went down there. I went down a day early and played on Sunday, which was called Short Hills Country Club. They were nice enough to host us out there, let us play 18 holes. It is the first time in my life that I ran out of golf balls during a round.
But how many did you have?
I mean, I don't know for sure. First of all, I don't know what they're doing. There are no golf balls on that course, like none. People must spend hours looking for them because you think all right, well, I'm poking around in the trees. I won't find my ball, but I'll find somebody else's. There's nothing out there. I might have had 7 golf balls.
Wow.
And I lost them all. I finished 17 and played 18 with a range ball that I had grabbed. Because we cut by the driving range at one point, and I started to think, this is getting dangerously low. I better grab a range ball. But the good news is that I was able to advertise the BMW Championship and Lou Lang,
yeah.
and the Encompass Championship by spreading those golf balls throughout the course. And some of the ones I lost weren't even in the forest or anything. It was just it's an old course with tight fairways and big trees, and I hit it all over the damn place. So I couldn't even see where the ball was going. I just had to go and trust that I could find it in the next fairway. I just couldn't do it. So I had to go before I could play at the media day. I had to hunt for golf balls in East Moline, which took me to the South Park Mall, where there's a Dick's Sporting Goods. Let me tell you, South Park Mall, those malls that you see in zombie apocalypse movies where they're shut down and things are falling apart and the lights are half on, that's what this place looked like. It was the most depressing place, and people were inside using it not for the stores, but they were walking around the perimeter of it as a walking path, which I had never seen. And I couldn't get in the Dick's because it was closed, even though it was 9:30 and the website said it opened at 8. So I don't know if that Dick's is ever open.
So it didn't open?
No.
How'd you get golf balls?
Well, eventually I went to Walmart, which by comparison made this Walmart looked like a paradise compared to this mall. But no, yeah, I was able to grab a box, and I only lost 2 on the John Deere course. So
you can lose balls out there too.
Especially the way I end up having to play in these scrambles is everybody expects me to just wail away with my driver and take stupid shots. But yeah, I was able to get through there with only losing 2 balls. I lost 7 at Short Hills, so maybe Short Hills is a real tough course.
2 days.
It's a lot of lost golf balls.
But if anybody from the BMW or Encompass thing, he look at it like John did everybody a favor.
Yeah, it's free advertising. That's why you should give me more golf balls because I'll spray them all over the place.
And yeah, and the Western Am is coming up, and maybe they need some publicity. They just send you out to Central Illinois to play golf.
Well, speaking of lost golf balls, it's probably as good a transition as any to go to
out west,
out west,
Chambers Bay.
Chambers Bay, yeah, exactly.
The host of the U.S. Open, which is the week of my birthday, so that would be my birthday is June 16th.
How old does that make you?
I'll be 40.
Wow.
The U.S. Open then starts, best I can tell, the 18th, which is the Thursday.
So you're now at the point where you could shoot your age for 9 holes and really not have played that well.
I guess that's one way to look at it. I'm waiting. My dad turned 70 this year, and he a week or 2 weeks before his birthday, he shot 73.
Wow, he's
very close to shooting his age, which is pretty good for a non-professional.
So, real quick, before we go to U.S. Open, I should have mentioned John Deere, July 6th through 12th down in Silvis. So, if you want to see, PGA Tour guys, including Jordan Spieth, Masters champion, there'll be 3 Masters champions in the field.
That'd be Zach Johnson, Jordan Spieth.
And can you name the third? I bet you can't because I forgot that this person existed.
Mike Weir?
No, Trevor Immelman.
He still plays?
Apparently.
So his brother works for PGA Tour Radio as an on-course reporter, because I listen to this all the time, okay. And they bring out Mark Immelman. I'm like, didn't that guy win the Masters? And then they would start talking about him, and he's the brother of Trevor Immelman, who is still around.
Right, so 3 Masters champions. You probably care more about Jordan Spieth, but he will be there, and Harman will be trying to defend his title. So anyway, sorry, but back on U.S. Open.
But we should say the reason why we're talking about this right now is the Memorial Tournament is this week. Tiger Woods is playing. This is the first tournament he's played since the Players' Championship.
Right.
It will be the only one until the U.S. Open. And, for someone that's trying to work his way, back into the swing of things, doesn't seem like a lot of golf. But the other thing is he went to Chambers Bay earlier this week and spent, I believe, 2 days scouting the golf course. One day on the front nine, one on the back nine. And he has Mike Davis, who's the USGA guru, the guy that sets up the golf course. He was sort of, pleading or threatening players to say, if you don't come here, you will not play well.
I would contend that there is no way a player will have success here at Chambers Bay unless he really studies the golf course and learns it. So
okay, and that's probably a fair statement considering they've never had any other tournament than the U.S. Amateur, which none of these guys probably played in, or so very few. So yeah, and it's kind of you used the word quirky and then equated that to this is going to be a disaster.
Well, you know what? I don't know enough about the course to necessarily say it's going to be a complete disaster, but what I was referring to is the news that the USGA is planning to set the course up with tee boxes that aren't flat, which to me sounds just absolutely ridiculous.
That includes you could have uphill tee boxes, downhill tee boxes, and side hill tee boxes, which I'm curious if you could have a downhill, side hill lie on a 230-yard par 3.
Those of us who play the local munis are not unaccustomed to hitting tee boxes where you're in areas that
brings up a good point. If some amateur qualifier comes in and is like, I play this golf course all the time.
It just doesn't make sense to me in a tournament that places such a premium on hitting your ball in the fairway. Why you wouldn't at least set the tee boxes up to give players the absolute best chance to hit the fairway? Why you would introduce another variable? And I think
it's not that they're building these. I know they're already like that.
What I'm saying then is maybe you should have rebuilt the tee boxes, or maybe you shouldn't have, because I just read these quotes from Davis, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me like a guy who's just trying to get out in front of things. Like maybe they realize that this could be bad. If PGA Tour players, they probably won't say too much negative during the week, but they don't like things like they're not going to like tee boxes that are uneven. And so here's what he said. This is a one-of-a-kind site for us at a U.S. Open. There's going to be some players that just love this ground game and love the imagination and embrace it. And then there are other players who just want predictability. Now that to me is just already trying to get out in front and say, any player who doesn't like this, any player who doesn't like standing at a 45-degree angle while they hit their tee shot,
that's no imagination.
He's just a jerk. That guy's just a jerk, and he just wants everything to be too easy for him. Well, the course is already going to be 7,000-plus yards. There's already going to be rough up to their knees.
And weather.
The greens are already going to be rock hard and lightning fast. So do we really need a slanted tee box?
Well, and the other thing is, I read in addition to the the slope tee boxes, there are also some, like Rich Harvest Farms, there's multiple tee boxes for each hole. And I think Mike Davis used the word ribbon tee boxes, so if you can just picture a ribbon, so that it gives you different angles. So he said that every day a hole might play differently. So in a way, I mean, what he's saying is go ahead and quit your job as a PGA Tour player, move to Seattle for 2 months, because there's no way players can prepare that much to play for one tournament. And frankly, this is where I start to question his decisions. I'm fine with the slope tee box. If that's the way the golf course was built, fine. But you can't start changing this, maybe say just for instance number one can't play differently 4 days in a row, because he's right. I mean, you're playing there one time. You can't ask these guys to come out there. I mean, they're playing all over the country and all over the world for the U.S. Open. You can't tell them to stop playing and come out here. And it's in Seattle, which isn't exactly in the middle of the country or world. It's not the easiest place to get to. So I think, but I'll be honest, I'm going to enjoy listening to, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out, Bubba Watson complaining about it. Because at the end of the day, these guys do get paid a lot of money to play golf. So
that is the part of the U.S. Open that people, I think, is watching tour pros be tortured for a week.
Yes.
So that I think that'll certainly be the case. We'll see how this one goes. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be a bit of a disaster.
But I mean, disaster in terms of just the players hating it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in terms of will be entertaining television, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch Bubba breakdown after.
I mean, I wonder if Mike Davis is going to be on the property during the U.S. Open, because he might sort of maybe fear for his personal safety.
And again, we're sort of
if Boo Weekley's playing and he's upset, I would get out of town.
We're just as blind as the players on this. We haven't seen that either. So just
and I think that's why it's
trying to
kind of fun.
Read tea leaves and guess from the quotes and the stories that I've read. But I think I see you made a note here that Nick Hardy is playing in a sectional qualifier on this upcoming Monday.
Yeah, so he already made it through. And forgive me, this is my fault. It's just been kind of a crazy week of high school sports. But so the NCAA golf tournament just ended, and now all these college players that were there are going to go through, if they made it through local qualifying, they're going to play sectional qualifying, which if they do that, then they're in the U.S. Open. I know Nick Hardy is playing Monday. I do not know if our other local player, Doug Gim from Arlington Heights, is playing. If I had to guess, I would say yes, but we'll have to look that up and see. So if Nick has always been a friend to us in terms of information. I would love to see him get there, and I would love to see what the mood is at Chambers Bay during the week. I mean, that'd be a great insight for us to have. But I mean, do you want to talk about the NCAA tournament now?
Yeah,
is this
sure.
a good enough time to do that? So that was this past.
Oh, sorry, actually, yeah. Doug Gim is playing in a sectional qualifier at Germantown Country Club.
Well, I think that's in Tennessee.
On Monday, on June 8th, coming up here. So he has also made it through.
Yeah, so that'd be great. So I want to say one. Well, we can get to what I talked to Doug Gim on. That was Monday night. So Texas and Illinois both made it through the stroke play portion of the NCAA tournament. If you don't know how this works, there are 30 teams that make the NCAA National Championships, which was in Bradenton, Florida, at Concession Golf Club. They play 54 holes of stroke play. After that, they cut the bottom 15 teams. Then those 15 teams play one more round to determine the final 8, which then go to play match play. So Texas and Illinois was the top seed. They won the stroke play portion. Texas also made it. Doug Gim is a freshman at Texas. And so when I spoke to him on Monday after making it, I asked him, I said, there's probably maybe a stigma. I don't know if that's still true these days with all the technology and indoor facilities. But I said, does it make you proud to be a Chicago area guy playing at this high of a level. You and Nick Hardy both down there, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's great for us." He said, "I think a lot of times kids back home feel that Midwest players are not only overlooked, but can't get to that highest level because of the way the weather is." He said, "It's really cool, and it goes to show you, no matter where you're from, if you have the work ethic and the passion, you can compete at the highest level." And I thought that's a really great thing for him to say, because there are a lot of good players in this area that probably think they're handicapped by just the geography. And it goes even farther. You look at Illinois, which there is no reason really Mike Small should have one of the best teams,
right?
But he has somehow sold them on, hey, we can still be good, if you come here. And if you looked at all the other 8 teams, you have USC, great weather. Georgia, you can play year round. Texas, you can play year round. LSU, you can play. I mean, it just
right.
all. And then you have Illinois,
right?
And they made the Final Four.
Yeah, Illinois and you're
from Illinois, and look
right.
at your game.
I'm not an argument for.
Well, let me put it this way: I'm from the South, and look at my game. We're equal.
But you are the most weather sensitive Southern boy that I have ever met. I mean, 80 degrees is too warm, 60 degrees is too cold. You've got like a 15-degree window in which you're okay with, unless it's raining or there's wind. So I mean, you have a very small window for good weather. You're very sensitive to that.
So what you're saying is, if I ever somehow made it into the British Open field,
no.
I might call
you'd Kenny Perry him. You'd pass.
I might call the pro shop and be like, "I'm not coming in today."
No. Illinois and your beloved Bulldogs were semifinalists. What did you think of Georgia's golf shirts?
I hated them.
They were the most hideous
They were
things.
awful. Red
with like a black and white stripe across the shoulders, the G logo on the front, and the bulldog in the middle of the back.
Then
that was
USC
ugly.
had the same version of those. They were awful.
Oh yeah,
and they had numbers on the sleeve.
Terrible.
It was really bad. I will say Texas, their outfits in the quarterfinals weren't any better. Khaki pants and like this light burnt orange shirt, which my brother referred to as flesh colored. But the Georgia shirts were atrocious.
Yeah.
I doubt they sell one of those, at Dick's Sporting Goods.
Right.
Not the one in South Park, East Moline.
They're not selling anything.
We're not sure it's even
Dick's
open.
Sporting Goods in East Moline.
But yeah, I forgot about that until you brought it up. But yeah, they were hideous.
I would say that's probably the main reason they lost to LSU in the semifinals.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, they were just so ashamed. But if you're Bryson DeChambeau, who was the individual medalist, won the national title from SMU, a junior, he's an interesting character. He was a Sweet 16er at last year's Western Amateur. It was either the second or third round of stroke play. He hits his ball in the water, and he takes off his shoes, socks, and shirt.
That's right.
And hops in the water and hits the ball. So if I'm Georgia, apparently you can play without a shirt, as DeChambeau.
You can take one shot at the shirt without a shirt, I suppose. I doubt he putted out without a shirt.
I don't know. But now the funnier thing is that weekend at the Byron Nelson, Boo Weekley hits the ball in the water, and I'm watching this, and then he rolls up his pants. Then he climbs out of the water. He was still wearing his shoes.
What is the point in that? Well, in the semifinals, a Georgia player, I forget who, had a ball in the water, and he went in there and hit with his shirt and shorts on, presumably because the mud would have only been an improvement on that piece of trash shirt that he was wearing.
That golf course was tough. I mean, I've never seen so many people hit the ball out of the water.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Even in the women that played the week before there, and I saw a lot of women hitting the ball out of the water. Just a
what
long.
Is it? Just a lot of shallow water, or what?
Yeah, I mean it's Florida's swampy, but there were ponds, and it must have been some receding water lines. So there's a lot of mud, and you can stand and a couple inches of water.
Did I see at some holes they had guys standing just to kind of keep eyes on the gators? That might have been.
Could have been. I mean,
I wouldn't be. That's not. Florida isn't the first place I'd be hopping in a water hazard to go play a shot.
Hey, it's for the national championship. but yeah, so Illinois beat somebody to get into the the semifinals. They were UCLA. They beat UCLA. Nick Hardy is the fifth and final player for Illinois, and if you don't know, you have 5 guys versus 5, and you get a point for winning. And he has a 6-foot par putt on 18 that he just center cut, gets Illinois to the semifinals.
We've talked before. Nick seems to be a pretty good match play player.
Great putter.
Yeah.
Which is, that's
makes birdies in bunches. Can get hot, which is good for match play. But yeah, that putt got them into the semifinals.
And then Texas with Doug Gim, they lose to USC. USC plays Illinois. They beat them, I think 3-1 and 1 or 3-0 and 2. 3-1 and 1.
Yeah, because USC had put the first 2 points on the board. I think Dietrich, Thomas Dietrich from I believe Belgium. Is that right? He's an Illinois player.
Yes.
He scored a point for Illinois.
It was 3-1 and 1.
And he's headed to the Palmer Cup. It looked for a while like Nick's match was gonna just definitely decided. Nick playing in the 5th and final match was gonna look like it was gonna go either way. I'm not sure that's how it would have played out. Although I think that his point that he lost was the one that ended up sealing it for USC. But USC had come back in another match that looked like it was going to be Illinois' for the taking, and tied it. So that wasn't necessarily the deciding match. UCLA or USC was pretty in control by the end of that matchup.
It was the same way. I mean, Illinois is winning the majority of matches on the front nine. Georgia is winning the majority of their matches against LSU on the front nine, and it just flipped the back nine. USC makes a charge, and LSU makes a charge, and LSU, of course, ends up beating USC for the national title. But I'll say, this was, I think, the first year that almost the entire tournament was on the Golf Channel, and I was captivated. It was great. Of course, I'm a golf fan, but again, we always talk about this. This is, same with the Palmer Cup. These are guys that you don't go to Illinois without thinking that I would like to be a professional golfer someday. Mm-hmm. So these players are the best of the best in amateur golf, and we'll see a lot of them at the Western Am.
Many of these guys will be at the Western Am
and the US Am.
Right. So these guys will be making a few rounds through the area this year.
Yeah, but again, when I spoke to Doug Gim on Monday, I asked him about the Western Am, and he was the medalist last year at Beverly Country Club. He made it. Did he make it to the quarterfinals? So if from stroke play, the top 16 then go to match play, and there was several. There were Texas and Illinois, which both were in the final 8 this week at the NCAA tournament. They each had 3 players last year in the Sweet 16 at the Western Am. Anyway, so I asked Doug. I said, because there's some debate about where the Western Amateur ranks, in the world of amateur golf. Because of course you have the U.S. Amateur, the British Amateur, the Western Amateur, but then you have some other ones like the North-South Amateur, the Sunny-Hana Amateur. I will contend that the Western Amateur produces as good of a champion as any of them.
I know you like that format.
So. I think it's great. It's grueling, and
it's a lot of golf. But
it's a lot of golf,
to separate the guys who are playing well that week.
Yeah, because in the USAM you go to match play after only 36 holes of stroke plays. Then you have the 64, and as we've seen, match play, a lot can happen.
Basically, you're just trying to make sure that the best players get into match play. Stroke play should, if you have enough stroke play, that should separate the players who are truly the top players, and you get them into match play. But yeah, once you're in match play, anybody can win.
So when I asked Doug Gim straight up, I said, do you think the Western Amateur produces a better champion than the U.S. Amateur? And he said, absolutely. Said if you look at the field, who is in it, first of all, better players, deeper field. I mean, they take it it's an invitational, whereas the U.S. Amateur, you qualify for it. There's some guys that get exemptions, but he said with 64 players in match play, he said you could have a guy essentially come out of nowhere and win, which also is fun to watch, but not necessarily producing the best champion,
right.
Which is okay.
We're not asking whether it's a more or less entertaining tournament, just whether the champion.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away. I'll watch the U.S. Amateur, but I do think that the Western Amateur has the best field and then therefore the best champion,
Western
no matter
Amateur
who it is.
Champion last year was Bo Hostler, who of course is Doug Gim's teammate on Texas. Maybe that's why he was saying that.
He's only a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Gim's a freshman. Scotty Scheffler, who was the other Texas player in the Sweet 16 at the Western Amateur, he's a freshman.
Wow.
Then on Illinois' side, Brian Campbell is a senior, will graduate. Charlie Danielson, junior. Nick Hardy, freshman. So Charlie Danielson, he might be a senior. But anyway, Illinois is not going to be Nick Hardy and Dylan Meyer, the other freshman, will now be sort of leading that Illinois team in the future here. It's going to be fun to watch. I mean, if this week was any indication, college golf he's a junior.
Charlie Danielson.
So I mean, Illinois is returning 3 of its 5 players from the NCAA tournament, so there's no reason to think that they can't be right back in that situation again.
Yeah.
And that was the third year in a row they've made match play.
Mm-hmm.
So they clearly are one of the best programs now in the country. I mean, Mike Small, you just have to. I don't know how this guy doesn't win Coach of the Year every year.
Well, because it gets boring to get to the same person.
Yeah, it might be.
You raise your expectations enough, now you got to win a state title, or not state title, win a national title, I guess. But
we're going to see, so like you mentioned, Thomas Dietrich will be playing for the Europeans at the Palmer Cup, which is June 12th through 14th.
Georgia's top player, that Lee McCoy, is that right?
He was a first-team All-American.
Right. He was at, we watched him match play there at the NCAA Championship, and he will be on the American side.
He's a similar-looking guy to Brian Harman in terms of stature. I mean, shorter, slight guy. I mean, I guess you put this equipment and these golf balls in these guys' hands, and it doesn't matter how big you are. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to the Palmer Cup. I'm kind of juiced on the NCAA tournament.
You will, Matt's Palmer Cup preview will be out in the next couple days here. It should be online probably by the time the podcast is on the Chicago Tribune website. He's just basically looking at some of the unique elements of the Palmer Cup, what sets it apart from some of the other Ryder Cup style events that we have in amateur golf. And talking to a few guys who've played in it before. And if you missed our Palmer Cup podcast preview, we'll probably send that out too over the next couple of days because, of course, it starts tournament week, is next week, starts on Friday the 12th at Rich Harvest Farms in Sugar Grove. It goes 12, 13, 14. And again, free admission, free parking. Get out there and see the golf course if nothing else, which, later in the week we'll have, I'll be writing a story about sort of the making of Rich Harvest Farms, with some interesting stuff in there that you may not have heard about. So,
and it just on that same line with Rich Harvest in the crossover with the NCAA tournament, they will be hosting the men and women national championship in 2017.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean there just seems to be a lot of good golf, a lot of good amateur golf in this area. So. I'm going to be riding this wave as long as possible. Now the only question is, when can I get my golf game in good enough shape to be ready for our big tournament, the Ryder's Cup, which usually is in August. And this year it will be at the Chicago Highlands.
From everything we're hearing, Chicago Highlands, Illinois versus Wisconsin. I saw a couple of those Wisconsin guys at John Deere Media Day. I made a point not to talk to them. They knew what was up.
The gamesmanship has already begun.
Yeah, exactly. We have to get in shape for that because I don't think either of us is playing well enough right now. I can shoot right now. I can shoot 90 just as easily as I can shoot 77. So.
I mean, yeah, I'd be last. Yeah, it's. I need to go to the driving range.
Well, anything else golf-wise we need to talk about this week?
You know what? I think we covered
just about at
quite a bit of stuff. I mean, we hit everything from the John Deere Classic to how players will quit golf at Chambers Bay to.
I hope I'm wrong about
tournament.
that U.S. Open, but I don't necessarily think I will be. I'm not wrong very often. So. Well, that should be about it for the Teeing Off podcast. I'm John Borneman. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at @teeing__off, and my personal is at John_Borneman. He's Matt Harness at Harness Preps. Until next time. And I'm trying hard to recall the jump I saw at the outset. Oh, a peaks on a wave and a storm is coming. To be safe, God, please send us something.